Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive where we take all this complicated research and try to make sense of it.
Yeah, simplify it.
Exactly. And today is especially interesting. I think we're diving into the world of regenerative medicine.
Oh, yeah, a really hot topic these
It
days.
is. And we're going to be focusing on a company called BioRestorative Therapies,
You know them.
BRTX.
BRTX for short.
Yeah, they're not a household name yet.
Yeah,
But that's what makes this deep dive so interesting, right? We're going to be looking at their core business, their financials, and really trying to assess, what their potential is in this exciting field.
sounds like a plan.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be particularly interesting for, folks who are maybe looking at investment opportunities
Mhm.
or just, fascinated by the future of medicine.
Absolutely.
Like I am, but before we get too deep into the weeds, I want to tease something pretty surprising.
Oh, okay. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, we're going to be revealing a really interesting fact about one of BRTX's therapies that I think you'll find pretty mind-blowing.
All right, looking forward to that.
Yeah, so stick around for that. But first, let's start with the basics. What is BRTX all about?
So BRTX focuses on two major areas, and these are problems that a lot of people struggle with: chronic lower back pain and metabolic disorders like obesity.
Yeah, I mean, who hasn't experienced back pain at some point in their lives?
Right. It's incredibly common.
It is, and obesity is, a growing concern worldwide.
Absolutely.
So these are, huge markets that they're targeting.
And they're tackling them in a very unique way.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So BRTX 100, that's their lead product candidate, right?
Correct.
And it's designed to treat chronic lower back pain, and it uses the patient's own stem cells.
Yeah, their own cells to heal themselves.
It sounds almost like science fiction.
It does, but this is the reality of regenerative medicine.
So how does that actually work? I mean, are they, extracting stem cells and then injecting them back into the patient?
It's a bit more complex than that, but essentially, yes.
Okay, and what's the thinking behind that? I mean, why stem cells?
Yeah. The stem cells have this incredible ability to differentiate into different types of cells. So in the case of lower back pain, the idea is to use stem cells to repair damaged tissue.
I see. So it's not just about masking the pain, it's about actually healing the underlying problem.
Exactly, and that's a key differentiator for BRTX.
Right, they're not looking for a temporary fix, they're going for a long-term solution.
And the early results from their clinical trials are promising.
That's exciting. And what about their approach to obesity? You mentioned something about brown adipose tissue.
Yes, their ThermoStem program is all about generating brown adipose tissue using stem cells.
Okay, now I have to admit, I'm not familiar with brown adipose tissue. What is that?
So we all know about white fat, which stores energy, but brown fat actually burns energy to generate heat.
Oh, wow. So it's like the good kind of fat.
In a way, yes, and that's why it's so intriguing for obesity treatment, because if we can increase brown fat activity, we can potentially help people burn more calories.
So instead of just, suppressing appetite or blocking fat absorption, they're actually trying to change how the body processes energy.
It's a completely different approach and a very exciting one.
Yeah, I mean, this is really cutting edge stuff. And I love how they're not just focused on, one specific area of regenerative medicine. They're exploring multiple avenues.
Absolutely, and it speaks to their ambition as a company.
And they even have a side hustle going on in the skincare world.
Oh, right, their biocosmeceutical platform.
Yeah, a cell-based serum that could reduce wrinkles. Sign me up.
Well, they're still in the early stages of development with that.
Of course, of course. But it just goes to show, the potential of this technology. It's not just about, treating serious diseases. It can also be applied to things like aesthetics.
And that's a smart move from a business perspective because it diversifies their revenue streams.
Right. It's like they're hedging their bets.
In a way, yes.
But let's face it, they're not the only player in this game.
No, the field of regenerative medicine is getting pretty crowded.
Yeah, I mean, you've got big pharma companies like AstraZeneca and Pfizer who are also making moves in this space.
And they have a lot of resources.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So how does a relatively small company like BRTX hold its own against these giants?
That's where their management team comes in.
Okay, so they've got a strong leadership team.
They've assembled a really experienced group of individuals with extensive backgrounds in biotech and pharmaceuticals.
So these are people who know how to navigate the complex world of drug development.
They have a proven track record of bringing products from the research lab to the market.
Okay, that's encouraging. But experience alone doesn't guarantee success. What else stands out about BRTX's leadership?
Well, one thing that's really interesting is their strategic focus on adult stem cells.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because I know there's been a lot of, ethical debate surrounding the use of embryonic stem cells.
Right, and by focusing on adult stem cells, BRTX sidesteps those ethical concerns.
And probably some regulatory hurdles as well, I imagine.
Absolutely. It's a smart move that allows them to differentiate themselves in a crowded market.
Yeah, it's not just about having a great idea. It's also about navigating the ethical and regulatory landscape.
And they seem to be doing that very well.
Yeah, so they've got the experience, they've got the strategy, but what about the financial side of things?
Let's talk money.
Exactly. Because being a clinical stage company, I'm guessing they're not exactly rolling in profits yet.
That's right. They're still in the investment and development phase.
Okay. But are they at least managing their finances carefully?
They are, and their recent financial reports, particularly their Q3 2024 results, show some encouraging signs.
Oh, good. What kind of signs are we talking about?
Well, they've significantly reduced their operating losses both year over year and sequentially.
So they're not bleeding cash.
No, they seem to be on a path towards sustainability.
Okay, that's good to hear. But what about the numbers? What are some of the key financial metrics that stand out to you?
Well, they have a healthy cash reserve of $13.1 million.
Okay, not bad.
And zero debt
Even better.
as of September 2024.
Got it. So while they're not profitable yet, they're managing their resources well.
Exactly. And that's a key consideration for investors, especially in a volatile market like this.
Right. And speaking of investors, we'll be diving into market sentiment and ownership structure in the next part of this deep dive.
Sounds good.
But before we move on, I just want to tease something pretty interesting.
Oh, all right. I'm all ears.
We're going to be revealing a surprising fact about BRTX's therapies that could have a major impact on their future.
All right. Now you've got me hooked.
Yeah, so stick around for that. All right, so let's talk market sentiment. Are investors, are they as excited about BRTX as we are?
Well, the analysts seem to be pretty bullish.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the average one-year price target for BRTX is $13.26.
That's pretty impressive considering, there's still pre-revenue.
It is, and it suggests that the market sees significant potential for growth.
But I imagine there's, a range of opinions out there.
Of course, there always is. Some analysts are more optimistic, setting price targets as high as $18.90.
Wow, almost $19 a share.
While others are more cautious with targets closer to $8.08.
Okay, so a pretty wide range.
But the majority of analysts have assigned a buy recommendation to BRTX.
So the overall sentiment is positive.
Yes, definitely.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about ownership structure.
Okay, sounds good.
What does the breakdown of ownership tell us about the company?
Well, one thing that stands out is the insider ownership, which sits at a healthy 26.61%.
Okay, so can you explain what that means for our listeners who might not be familiar with that term?
Sure. Insider ownership refers to the percentage of shares owned by the company's management team and employees.
Ah, I see. So in BRTX's case, over a quarter of the shares are held by people who are, intimately involved with the company.
Exactly. And that's generally seen as a positive sign because it suggests that those closest to the company have a vested interest in its success.
Right. They literally have skin in the game.
And it aligns their interests with those of the shareholders.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about institutional ownership?
Institutional ownership is also noteworthy at 13.76%.
So that's investment funds, pension funds, things like that.
Exactly. And that number has been steadily increasing over the past year.
So more and more big institutions are buying into BRTX.
It seems that way.
That's encouraging. All right. So we've got, positive market sentiment, strong insider ownership, growing institutional interest. Things are looking pretty good for BRTX so far.
On the surface, yes.
But we always have to, look at both sides of the coin.
Of course, every company has its risks and challenges.
Exactly. So let's do a little reality check and dive into a SWOT analysis.
SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats.
It's a framework that helps us, assess a company's overall position.
And identify potential areas of concern.
All right. So let's start with the good stuff. BRTX's strengths. What are some of their key advantages?
Well, we've already touched on a few. Their strong management team, their strategic focus on adult stem cells.
And their impressive clinical trial results so far.
Right. But in addition to that, their intellectual property portfolio is a major strength.
Okay, tell me more about that.
They hold 14 international patents for their thermostem technology alone.
Wow, 14 patents.
Including a recent win from the European Patent Office extending their protection until 2040.
So they've got a pretty solid moat around their technology.
Yes. And that's crucial in a competitive industry like this.
Absolutely. And they also received the FDA Fast Track designation for BRTX 100, right?
That's correct. And that's a big deal.
Yeah, it could significantly expedite the approval process.
Exactly. It shows that the FDA recognizes the potential of their therapy.
Okay, so lots of strengths to build on. Now let's talk about weaknesses.
Hmm.
What are some of the challenges that BRTX faces?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, they're not profitable yet.
Which is to be expected for a clinical stage company.
Right. But their dependence on the success of key programs like BRTX 100 and ThermoStem is a significant risk.
If those programs fail to deliver, the company could be in trouble.
It's certainly a possibility, and then there's the competition.
Oh yeah, we talked about the big players like AstraZeneca and Pfizer.
They have vast resources and established distribution networks.
It's tough to compete with that.
It is, but BRTX does have some advantages.
Such as?
Well, their focus on adult stem cells gives them a distinct edge in terms of ethical considerations.
And potentially a faster path to regulatory approval.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not a hopeless battle?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
They've carved out a niche for themselves.
Now let's move on to opportunities. What are some potential avenues for growth and expansion?
Well, the regenerative medicine market is growing rapidly, so there's a huge opportunity there.
Yeah, it's a multi-billion-dollar market.
And BRTX is well positioned to capitalize on that growth.
What about, partnerships or licensing deals?
Those are definitely possibilities. Their proprietary technology could be very attractive to larger pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, it could be a win-win situation.
And there's also the potential to expand their biocosmeceutical platform.
Right, the skincare stuff.
That's a market with enormous potential.
Right, so lots of opportunities on the horizon. But we also need to consider the threats. What are some factors that could derail BRTX's success?
Well, the high cost of developing and delivering cell-based therapies is a major challenge.
Yeah, these treatments are not cheap.
And that could limit their accessibility.
And then there's the regulatory landscape.
Yes. The FDA approval process is lengthy and complex.
There are no guarantees.
And even if they get approval, they still have to convince insurance companies to cover their therapies.
Right. That's a whole other battle.
And, of course, there's always the risk of unforeseen setbacks in clinical trials.
Yeah, drug development is a risky business.
But the potential rewards are also huge.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have. We've looked at BRTX's business model, their management team, their financials, market sentiment, ownership structure, and we've done a SWOT analysis.
Yeah, remember that surprising fact I teased earlier?
Yes. I'm still curious about that. Well, get this. BRTX is exploring cell-based therapies that might actually require lower doses than existing obesity drugs.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting.
Yeah, if they can achieve that, it could be a game changer, not just for the company, but for patients struggling with obesity.
Lower doses could mean lower costs and potentially fewer side effects.
Exactly. It can make their therapies much more accessible.
That would be a huge breakthrough.
It's pretty amazing, right? I mean, if they can actually pull it off.
It would be a significant development.
Yeah, and it just shows, how innovative this company is.
Absolutely. They're not afraid to think outside the box.
And that's what I love about this field of regenerative medicine.
It's all about pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Exactly. And, who knows what the future holds.
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, but even with all the potential risks and challenges, BRTX is a company that I'm personally very excited about.
I can see why.
And I think it's a company that our listeners should definitely keep an eye on.
Agreed.
So what are your final thoughts?
For me, it all comes back to the potential impact of their therapies. Imagine a world where chronic back pain is effectively treated, or where obesity is no longer such a widespread health concern.
It's a powerful vision.
And BRTX is taking concrete steps towards making that vision a reality.
And that's what makes it so exciting.
Absolutely.
All right, well, I think that wraps up our deep dive into biorestorative therapies.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating discussion.
It has, and I hope our listeners found it informative and insightful.
I'm sure they did.
And for anyone who wants to, dig a little deeper into this topic, I highly recommend checking out the Stock Analytics AI YouTube channel.
We have a ton of great content over there, including other deep dives like this one.
And don't forget to check the description for links to all the source material we used in this episode.
We believe in transparency, and we want you to have all the information you need to, do your own research and make your own informed decisions.
Absolutely. And as always, a friendly reminder that this deep dive is for informational purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice.
Investing in the stock market always carries risks, so please consult with a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.
And one last thing I just want to say, we're really passionate about this field of regenerative medicine. Yeah. And we believe it has the potential to revolutionize healthcare as we know it.
I couldn't agree more.
So stay curious, keep exploring, And who knows, maybe you'll be the one to make the next big discovery.
That's a great message.
All right, well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of regenerative medicine.
It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of a company shaping the future. Until then, stay curious.